farmers across the country face historically low commodity prices and severe economic difficulties, the benefits of expanding year-round sales of fuel blended with 15% ethanol would have a significant impact on the ag sector. Not only would it raise corn prices, it would also create jobs and has the potential to increase tax revenues in struggling rural communities. Good evening and welcome to this very special Rural Town Hall. I'm Christina Lorenz. Joining me tonight is Emily Skor, CEO of Growth Energy, and Chip Bowling, a Maryland farmer and former National Corn Growers Association president. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really happy to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with Emily. Now tell us a little bit about Growth Energy and why you were drawn initially to the ethanol sector.
Growth Energy represents our country's ethanol producers and supporters. Our membership includes 100 ethanol plants and the companies that do the technology innovation with them. Together, they produce over 8 billion gallons of ethanol, and they purchase more than 2.5 billion bushels of corn from U.S. corn growers every year.
It's very important to the ag industry.
Yes, it is.
And this is an exciting time for ethanol as well. And Chip, former NCGA president, much of our audience is already familiar with you, but you are a Maryland corn farmer. You don't farm in the Midwest. Why are you such a strong advocate for ethanol?
Well, for me, I realized a long time ago that we had to have strong markets. We needed to have a place for corn to go to create demand. And I was fortunate enough to lead National Corn Growers for a couple of years. And living on the East Coast, we're not in the center of the grain belt, but we do grow corn there, and we have corn for ethanol, and it's my responsibility to help create demand.
Absolutely, and boy, do we have a lot to unpack tonight on this very timely topic, and you are a big part of tonight's show. We want to hear from you. In just a little bit, we're going to be opening up our phone lines and taking your calls live on the air. But first, RFD-TV recently sat down with President Donald Trump in an exclusive interview. Here's what he had to say about ethanol.
Well, you know, I've been very loyal to ethanol, as you probably know, and they've been terrific people. They backed me for Iowa, and primarily, if you really look, it's Iowa and a couple of other great places, and they were all for me. And I've been very loyal, and I'm going to be making some statements on that very soon. We're working very hard on the ethanol situation. It's very complex because as you take care of ethanol, something else gets hurt. You know all about that. But I've been very good for ethanol. And they're talking about moving it up to 15%. They're talking about 12 months as opposed to much less than that, as you know. And I'm looking at both of those situations. I've been dealing with Senator Grassley and Senator Joni Ernst, and they're terrific people. And I think we're going to come to a very good solution for the farmers.
And this is a big deal. The president is now talking about this. It's becoming more and more known in the press as well. Talk about why it's so critical to have this conversation about ethanol right now, Emily.
Ethanol is the tide that rises all ships in the rural economy. It has been the pillar of the Midwestern economy for the past decade. And looking forward, ethanol is the market that will drive an increase in demand for U.S. corn and U.S. grain.
And Chip, talk about why ethanol is so important to rural America.
Well, right now it creates demand right now. We knew years ago that we had to find, not only to take care of our livestock partners and have corn for trade, we needed something else to eat and grind corn. We're good at growing corn.
Yes.
We've got a 2 billion bushel carryover, and ethanol is the fastest, most efficient way to use up corn for corn farmers across the country.
Okay, so we know this is an exciting time. We are waiting on an announcement, an official announcement from President Trump, which, you know, he promised on his campaign trail. He continues to promise, and so we are standing by waiting for that announcement. But let's cover some background. For those who may be unfamiliar, what is the Renewable Fuel Standard, or the RFS?
The Renewable Fuel Standard, it's our nation's energy policy and really our nation's agricultural policy. It is a law that makes sure we as a nation use more American-made renewable biofuel every year in our transportation fuel mix. It was first passed in 2005, so we've had more than 10 years, and it has just delivered phenomenal success. You have over 200 ethanol plants in this country today, producing over 16 billion gallons of ethanol, and it's good for the rural economy, and it's also good for the American consumer. And that's a really important point that that gets missed in this political policy conversation. The more ethanol we use in our fuel, it's affordable, it's cleaner, it's greener, and so it is something that everybody can appreciate when they pull up to the gas station.
You know, a lot of people call it a win-win because the consumers do save money at the pump. And you think about how much we drive, especially in the summertime, all year round. You know, we have to go and get gasoline. It's something that all Americans do. And so saving a little bit of money at the pump can be a big deal in the long run. We're hearing a lot about the need to protect the RFS. That's what's becoming more and more common in circles talking about this. What's that all about?
Well, the importance of this law is it forces competition into the fuel marketplace that otherwise had a nearly over 100-year monopoly with the petroleum industry. And so it gives ethanol producers access to the consumer and access to the marketplace by saying we are committed, we're going to be blending more biofuel, and here's why it's important. It decreases our dependence on foreign energy. So we become more energy independent, and we're becoming so with homegrown, American-made renewable energy.
Yes.
And so it's good for the rural economy. It's also great for the consumer. But again, we need access to the consumer. So we need this law to remain intact so that we continue to blend more renewable energy every single year.
Absolutely. Why isn't E15 sold year-round? I mean, with all the sense that it makes, why isn't it happening?
Well, we've got a vastly outdated rule that's nearly 30 years old that essentially says consumers, you can use this fuel that is more affordable. It's about 5 to 10 cents cheaper per gallon. It's cleaner, it's greener, it's good for the engine, good for the environment. You can buy this in May, you can buy this in January, but not in July when you're on the summer travel months with a family going on summer vacation. So it's an outdated rule that the president has said we need to fix and I want to fix. And so much of our focus really is just making sure that the president hears from rural America, yes, not only do we need it, but we need that fix right now.
Which is why RFD-TV moved forward and decided to do this rural town hall, because it is important. Talk about why rural Americans need to band together and push for year-round sales of E15.
So for corn growers, we need to, again, create demand. We need to grind corn that's used in ethanol. You know, we're good at growing corn. We have, you know, 175 bushel per acre average last year. We're on pace to do that again. And again, we have a 2 billion bushel carryout. So going to E15 will create approximately another 7 billion gallons of ethanol and grind 2.5 million bushels of corn. What better way can we do that in a hurry?
You know, you look at corn prices. I mean, today alone was a perfect example of corn prices, low commodity prices. The market closed today around $3.65. Yeah. That's at or below cost of production for most producers. The farm economy is in a 5-year decline. Farm economy is as low as it's been in about 12 years right now. So we're looking for that need, that want to help push our product. And getting E15 year-round is the easiest and most affordable way to do that. In fact, it doesn't cost the federal government anything. It's just a decision that needs to be made, and we're ready and poised to make the ethanol to provide that need. Okay, so, you know, it's kind of a head scratcher. It's not going to cost the federal government anything. We know it's a win for consumers. It's a win for agriculture and farmers, corn farmers across the country. But President Trump has repeatedly talked about an official announcement about E15, which we've been waiting for quite some time. I mean, he even just mentioned it in the soundbite that we showed at the top of the show. Do you think this is something that's going to happen in the near future? We certainly hope so, and we not only do we need this now for corn demand, but we need it in time for next summer's driving season. Yes. Because those are the months when consumers can't purchase this fuel. So, you know, all of our energy is really making sure that the president does follow through on the commitments and the promises that he's made and the pledges that we've heard even these past few days. What's next for ethanol if E15 is approved? Say he comes out. I mean, we've heard that this announcement could happen at any time. It could happen this week. It could happen next week. What is next then for year-round sales of E15? Is this something that we would see expand even further to maybe E30? Well, E15 is a stepping stone. Right now, as a nation, our fuel is blended with 10% ethanol. And so the first step is moving to that 15% ethanol. As Chip said, that's 7 billion gallons of ethanol, 2.5 billion bushels of corn demand.
But we know through our research, through the research of government laboratories and the auto industry, that the ideal fuel blend for the car of the future, for the consumer of the future, is a sweet spot where you're blending about 25 to 30% ethanol, so an E25 or an E30. So we are in regular communications and collaboration with the auto industry as they need to make a car that is more fuel efficient and has greater fuel economy. Ethanol is the ready solution.
And Chip, what are you hearing from corn farmers?
Well, we're ready for that decision to happen. We were hoping that decision was going to be made last week by Sonny Perdue at Farm Progress. We've been waiting for months to get the administration to go ahead and give us that E15 waiver. Our farmers are waiting patiently. We need that relief now, and it can't come soon enough.
Okay, let's talk about the health and cost-saving benefits of blending ethanol into fossil fuels, because this is something as a parent that I think for future generations is important to consider as well.
Well, this is something that I know more mothers and women and millennials who learn about this value that will be demanding more ethanol at the pump. Ethanol is 43% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions over gasoline. So it is better for the environment. You've got cleaner air. The more ethanol you use, the more you displace toxic additives used in gasoline. These are toxic additives linked to cancer, smog, asthma. And so again, as a mother of 2 children, it all comes back to my household and my family. When I am putting in a fuel like an E15, I am making sure that the air for my kids it's cleaner to breathe. And that's what's more important than that.
Helping an American farmer at the same time as well.
You're exactly right. And, the American farmer is good at growing crops. We're good at growing corn. And we're growing all this corn using less water, using less fuel, using less chemicals and less trips across the field. So not only is the consumer getting environmental benefit, as farmers, we are being environmentally responsive in growing corn and whatever crop the right way.
That's wonderful.
I would add, too, that traditional ethanol is made with corn. Increasingly, also, though, you look at the innovation, and it's made with other kinds of agricultural waste. That is called cellulosic ethanol. That has nearly 100% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh.
So all of the advancement and innovation that is happening in the ethanol production process, in the agricultural industry as a whole, we're making more with less. And we're reducing our carbon footprint.
There's a lot of misconceptions about ethanol, reasons why people would be almost afraid to put it in their vehicle, which are pretty ridiculous when you think about it. What do you say to the person who says, hey, is ethanol safe for my vehicle?
Not only is it safe for your vehicle, it's great for your engine. Engines love ethanol. I think a great example is the fact that Nascar uses fuel with E15, 15% ethanol. They have been since 2011. And when I talk to the drivers and when I talk to the individuals who build the engines for the cars, they rave about this because it burns cleaner and cooler. It's high octane. And so they love it for the engine, and I think if it's good enough for a NASCAR driver, it's going to be good enough for my Sunday drive with my kids.
Absolutely.
And it's a great feeling to go to a NASCAR race and have a team owner, or like Emily said, a driver come to you and say, hey, ethanol, we love that stuff. Because it does. It burns cleaner, it burns hotter, and it's more efficient for the drivers.
Yeah, I was listening to a story earlier on about someone who said that their engine was cleaner because of the ethanol. That's very interesting. Now, we have a lot to talk about, but we want to involve you in this conversation as well. You are a big part of the show. We're going to pause for a quick break, but stay with us because our phone lines are now wide open and we want to hear from you tonight. Give us a call at 877-731-6733 and join our conversation with your questions and your comments about ethanol for our panel of experts. We're taking your calls on the other side of this break. Again, the number is 877-731-6733. More Rural Town Hall right after this. Welcome back to RFD-TV's Rural Town Hall. Joining us tonight is Emily Skor, CEO of Growth Energy, and Chip Bowling, a Maryland farmer and former National Corn Growers Association president. And remember, you're a big part of this show, and we're taking your calls live on the air. The number to call is 877-731-6733. Join our conversation with your questions and your comments about ethanol for our panel of experts. Again, that number is 877-731-6733. 877-6733. You know, some might say the fuel retailer is the voice of the consumer. And joining us now by phone is Mike Lorenz, the Executive Vice President of Petroleum Supply at Sheetz. Mike, thanks for joining us. And for those who are unfamiliar, tell us about Sheetz.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Well, Sheetz is a family-owned and operated convenience store chain with 580 stores across 6 states. We currently have 240 stores that offer E15, and we're putting in E15 in all of our new stores.
What are your thoughts of year-round sales of E15?
Well, year-round sales are extremely important to us. It's a major problem for retailers and actually the consumer. From a retail perspective, first off, it prevents new retailers from offering E15. It's just a huge barrier for offering a product that you can only sell for 8 months out of the year. For existing retailers that are offering E15 like ourselves, first off, you have the loss in summer sales, and then you actually need to relabel our dispensers twice a year, which is obviously a huge cost in doing so. But from the consumer side, that's completely and totally confusing to the consumer that they only can buy this grade for 8 months out of the year. But they're actually also being deprived of the cheapest, cleanest grade of gasoline during the peak driving season.
Now, you brought up consumer confusion, which is a huge point because I'm sure you're not the only retailer across the country that's dealing with that. What would you like to see moving forward?
Well, I mean, we'd like to be able to sell this product year-round. I mean, as a retailer, we want to sell a product that people want to buy. And, you know, part of our brand promise is to offer a selection of quality products. And we see E15 as a quality product. It has a great value proposition for the consumer. We can sell it for less than 87 regular. It's cleaner burning and better performing. And it actually creates American jobs. So we see this product as a product that consumers want to buy. But being limited to only selling it 8 months out of the year is difficult.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight and sharing your perspective. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike Lorenz, Executive Vice President of Petroleum Supply at Sheetz. Really interesting to get a perspective from a retailer. Now we are going to start taking your phone calls, and we have our first caller, Mike from Michigan. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I've been burning E85 for 3 or 4 years. It's high octane. It's a premium fuel. I'm a fuel hauler. The biggest problem is a misconception of the consumer. You know, E85 ethanol is bad on your motor. You know, well, it's not. It's a clean fuel. You can run 5, 6 vehicles on E85 for the same pollution as one fossil fuel vehicle. We just need to get people educated on it. And why don't the manufacturers produce all vehicles, you know, to run on, you know, E85 or ethanol? You know, I think it's great. It's clean. It's good. It's good for the environment. It's good for the farmer. You know, we just need to promote it more.
So Mike, thanks for your comments. That's a great question. And believe me, National Corn Growers and Growth Energy, we're working every day to promote ethanol, whether it's E10 or E85. There are a lot of vehicles out there that can and will run perfectly on E85. Most of your Ford pickup trucks and heavy-duty trucks, a lot of SUVs are made to run on E85, so it's not a problem there. But Mike's exactly right. We need to do, and we have been doing promotion for years, and we got to continue that on.
You know, I totally agree. There is so much misinformation and a lack of the right information out there. Most consumers, most Americans don't think about ethanol. They don't really think about the transaction at the pump when they pull up in the gas station. And so we've got to change minds and we've got to change behaviors. And through our experience and through some of the research that we've done, we know that when you talk to women, when you talk to millennials, when you talk to people who live on the coasts, people who aren't in the heartland in rural America and may be less familiar with it, when you tell them it's good for the environment, it reduces our greenhouse gas emissions and our carbon footprint, it's good for the engine, and it's great for the pocketbook, that's when they reach for higher blends like E15. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get the word out and just start more conversations about why a little bit of ethanol can make life just a little bit better.
And we just had Mike Lorenz on the phone with Sheetz. Mike and other partners in Prime the Pump, they work every day promoting ethanol, not just E15, but promoting ethanol altogether. And it's those partners that we have through Prime the Pump that help us do our job a little bit better.
I would add to our caller that when retailers are selling E15, you see that they sell a tremendous amount more of ethanol because consumers like it. And this, at the end of the day, it's all about giving consumers access to choices. And when I talk to the retailers, that's what's in it for them. They want to be able to offer choice in the store and at the pump as well. And so when consumers have the choice to reach for that higher octane fuel with the savings, they reach for it time and time again.
Absolutely. Pocketbook talks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that call, Mike. And that leaves a line open for you. 877-731-6733 is the number to call. We're going to go back to the phones. And this time, we're going to Maine to talk to Fred. Go right ahead, Fred. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you for taking my call. A couple of minutes ago, Emily said that the ethanol will run cooler, and then Chip said that it will run hotter. I just want to know which one would be more accurate, which one is accurate, and if it does run hotter, is the average engine built to withstand added heat that's more than it's designed for?
So I'll take that one. It does a little bit of both. It burns hotter, but the engine runs cooler, if that makes any sense. Okay. It's a cleaner burning fuel that it ignites hot and it burns hot, but the engine stays cooler.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. And thank you for that call, Fred. We appreciate it. That leaves a line open for you, 877-731-6733. We're going to go back to the phones in just a moment, but let's talk about export opportunities for ethanol. Who are our top exporting markets right now?
Right now, our top trading partners include Brazil and Canada and India. And we, as a country, export just a little bit over 10% of the ethanol that we produce every year. Last year was a record-breaking year for us. This year will also be a record-breaking year for us. So the future is very bright for us because there is a huge global appetite for this product that we're making here in the U.S.
It seems like more and more countries are trying to make it themselves as well because they see all the advantages. Now, when you talk about exports, that doesn't mean that we're drifting away from what we want to do here domestically as well when it comes to growing the ethanol market. Speak to that, if you will.
So, yeah, I mean, our first priority is to grow corn to create a domestic fuel ethanol in this country. But we also see the need for exports. We work with Growth Energy, National Corn Growers, and U.S. Grains Council, who helps us with the export markets. There's tremendous growth there. And we have seen a lag in the U.S. political system as far as accepting ethanol. And we're in the process of making ethanol, and we need to move it. So if exports is a way to do that, we're going to do that.
Okay, we are going to go back to the phones. This time we're going to Oklahoma. And Norman, you're up. Thanks so much for joining the conversation.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I've always been curious to know what you fire the ethanol plants with. Do you fire your plants with ethanol, or do you fire it with natural gas?
There are a variety of different energy sources. The primary energy source is going to be natural gas. Increasingly, though, you've got some ethanol plants that can capture the steam that is produced through the manufacturing process, and that creates energy that they can reuse back. I mean, if you go to an ethanol plant, it is truly one of the most efficient manufacturing facilities. So we're making a lot of innovation, but natural gas is a primary source of energy.
When you talk about more E15 sales year-round, more ethanol plants, that means more jobs for Americans for that clean burning fuel. So that's very interesting as well. We're going to go back to the phones, and we're going to talk to John from Ohio. John, thanks so much for joining the conversation. Go right ahead. John, are you there? All right. I think we lost John. Well, let's keep talking.
We answered his question.
Yeah, I think you probably just did. Let's talk about how the future of ethanol abroad might look, say 10, 15 years down the line.
Well, I mean, we're very bullish about the opportunities because you've got countries like India is a great example where you have a growing middle class that are starting to use more cars. And as that country looks at their domestic needs and their policy goals, if it's clean air, if it's clean water, if it's rural economic development, if it's affordable gasoline for their consumers, in each one of those instances, ethanol is going to be a ready solution. And so Mexico is a good example of a country that just opened up its borders to ethanol for the first time last year. Japan is another country that announced earlier this year they will import American ethanol. And so we've got a lot of really good opportunities. Having said that, we have headwinds as well. We produce the cheapest octane in the world, American ethanol producers, and many countries are starting to put in place protective tariffs because they want to protect the domestic marketplace. And so a big part of our conversation with this administration is just the importance of having continued access to markets, that ability to have trade, because we're producing more every year, and we know there's an appetite, but the protective barriers are going to be a problem.
Absolutely. And hold that thought for a moment because we want to talk more about tariffs and how that is impacting the exporting of ethanol here in America. But first, we want to go back to the phones. And this time we're going to talk to Al from Iowa. Thanks for joining the conversation. Go right ahead, Al.
Yes. The three of you have done an excellent job of articulating the benefits of ethanol. In President Trump's comments, he talked about all of that he has done for ethanol, but actually under his administration, a great amount of ethanol demand has been destroyed through refinery exemptions. How do you square that with the administration? And how is that going to bring about E15 year-round?
Well, I mean, that's part of the conversation to the president and with the president, and we need your help and your voices as well in that chorus. The president has made some very good commitments and pledges, and yet his first administrator of the EPA, you're absolutely right, really in the dark of night, handed out waivers to oil refineries, essentially saying, you don't need to blend ethanol. We're going to set a target in terms of how much we're going to blend every year, but I'm going to let you off the hook. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. And so the result is it's reducing the demand for ethanol here in the U.S., and that's exactly opposite of what this president has said he wanted to do and would do for rural America and American farmers. And so the message to the president is you had an administrator who was implementing policies that ran completely counter to what it is that you want to deliver. And so with your current acting administrator, make sure that the devil in the details blends more biofuel every year and stands by the commitments to a strong renewable fuel standard and his recent commitments for year-round sales of E15.
So Scott Pruitt was recently replaced with Andrew Wheeler. How has he responded to this so far? We're having, time will tell. So I'm optimistic that he will be a good steward and I think a straight shooter. The feedback that we've gotten from other government officials is that the signs are good there. But really, he's got to right the ship in terms of some of the activities that took place under Mr. Pruitt's leadership at EPA. So he's got a long road ahead of him. I think one of the quickest things that he can do is working with the president, give us year-round sales of E15. That'll be the shot in the arm that we need for the rural economy. And that will help open the floodgates on the potential of this renewable fuel. Yeah. And it's like you were talking about, Chip, this is something that could help tomorrow. This is something that could help immediately.
Yeah, if we can get Mr. Wheeler with the EPA and the president to come out and give us E15 and RVP parity, demand will increase tomorrow. The markets they'll see that jump tomorrow. It's the quickest fastest thing they could do to create demand for the corn that we're growing. And we're ready for that.
You and the corn farmers all across the country, and the retailers and the consumers, it just makes so much sense. Thank you so much for that call, Al. Really great conversation we're having, and all because of your fantastic questions and comments. So keep those coming. 877-731-6733 is the number to call and join our discussion. And let's talk a little bit more about trade restrictions. How are they affecting U.S. ethanol production?
Well, a great example is China. So just a few years ago, China was one of our top trading partners, and today we are not sending one drop of ethanol to the country because they've got protective tariffs in place. And that is very much caught up in the trade conversation, the big trade conversation that's taking place. And so because there's opportunity, but there's also uncertainty in terms of our global export market, all the more reason we've got to make sure that we're continuing to drive demand here at home as well.
And you know, we were talking about the trade aid package and what that meant for corn farmers, especially when you compare what was given to soybean farmers. Talk a little bit about that, Chip.
Well, you know, corn farmers aren't real happy with a penny in the trade aid package, but I can tell you they would rather have open markets and have that trade back. We have given up farm bill subsidies over the last couple of years with farm bills. We want to have demand for our product so we can get a fair market price and bring up the farm economy the way it's supposed to be. So the penny wasn't a good deal for us. We're still not happy about that, but give us the E15 parity and that demand will raise.
That has been the general consensus that we've heard among farmers. They don't want the aid, they want the trade. And you know, we just saw President Trump, he negotiated a bilateral deal with Mexico. We're hoping for Canada next. Canada's big for ethanol, one of our top exporting nations.
Canada is a wonderful partner, and they too have made commitments that they want to start blending more ethanol into their fuel supply. And so all the more reason, again, that we need access to markets north and south and throughout the rest of the globe as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these other countries are seeing that there's environmental benefits to blending ethanol in their gas supply. They need to have cleaner burning engines, cleaner emissions, and ethanol is the way to get there for them, and they realize that now.
And you know, a lot of the partnership that Chip talked about with Growth Energy and ethanol producers and the corn growers and the U.S. Grains Council, we have to do a lot of education globally.
Yes.
So the educational needs are not just within our own borders, and so we participate in trade missions, in conversations with policymakers, and with members of industry in countries like India and Japan and Mexico. And we tell them about our own experience with ethanol, what it has done for us as a country, the success of the renewable fuel standard. And those conversations have helped pave the way for Mexico to open its doors, and Japan and India and other countries as well.
Okay, well, the conversation continues, and we thank you so much for your calls so far. We want to hear from you. 877-731-6733 is the number to call. Maybe you have questions, comments, or maybe an experience that you want to share regarding ethanol. Maybe you're a corn farmer and you want to let us know what ethanol E15 year-round sales mean to you. 877-731-6733 is the number. We're going to pause for a quick break, but stay with us. Like I said, our phone lines are open. When we come back, we're going to go over some more of those misconceptions about ethanol. Stay tuned. We'd like you to join our discussion tonight about ethanol and, of course, the importance of year-round sales of E15. More of your calls on the other side of this break. Again, the number 877-731-6733. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Rural Town Hall. Joining us tonight is Emily Skor, CEO of Growth Energy, and Chip Bowling, a Maryland farmer and former National Corn Growers Association president. And you are a big part of this show. We're taking your calls live on the air. The number to call is 877-731-6733. Join our conversation with your questions and comments about ethanol for our panel of experts. Again, the number 877-731-6733. And we are going to go straight to the phones. John from Ohio, thanks so much for joining us. Go right ahead.
Yes, it's very important that the people know that after ethanol is taken out of corn, that it is still used for animal feed to produce beef, pork, and things like that. It is a good feed, and it is not used just for fuel. A lot of people think that the farmers are selling their corn to make gasoline, and it's also used for feed after gasoline is removed. Thank you.
John, that's a great point and something we should have brought up earlier, but yeah, he's right. Not only are we making fuel with our corn kernel, but when we're done getting the fuel from it, we're having a high-protein feed called dry distillers grains that the farmers and the livestock producers that live close to an ethanol plant, they love it as a feed. The cattle, the hogs, the chickens love it. So great point. Glad to bring it up.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for that call, John from Ohio. And that leaves a line open for you to join our conversation. 877-731-6733 is the number to call. We're going to go back to the phones in just a moment. But earlier today, we spoke with U.S. Senator Deb Fischer from Nebraska. And here's what she had to say about the importance of E15 in her state and for rural America.
You know, I always like to tell my colleagues from Iowa that Nebraska is the largest ethanol producer west of the Missouri River. And it's very important to Nebraska that we would have E15. We have 25 ethanol plants. It is a $1 billion investment in the state of Nebraska, and it employs about 1,300 Nebraskans. So to be able to get to year-round E15, which I have a bill that would do that, would have a huge positive impact on the state of Nebraska.
You know, we have all been waiting on an official announcement from President Trump about year-round sales of E15. How much longer do you think we're going to have to wait?
Well, I know I visit with the president about it quite a bit, and he certainly understands the importance to the economy of my state and to the ag producers all across the country. We need to, I think, really be vocal about it and let him know how important this is. It would have a big impact, you know, to be able to have that year-round sale of E15, which is a clean fuel. It is one that's necessary to be out there. It makes engines run better. We have great testing on E15 with the billions of miles traveled already by vehicles that use it. So we have the information there. It's been tested. It works. And it would certainly help farm states.
Absolutely. And in the face of low commodity prices, we need a boost.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a way that farmers and rural Americans can try to enlist President Trump's help to ensure a year-round supply of E15, maybe a call to action?
You know, I think that would be a great idea. A lot of time, those of us in agriculture, we tend to hold back a little bit. We're not real vocal on our needs. We just do our work. We produce healthy, good, safe food and fuel and fiber. And sometimes we don't get that message out there. So I always tell my ag producers from Nebraska that we need to be better messengers. And we certainly can make calls to the president. We can make calls to the Secretary of Ag. We can make calls to the EPA and let them know how important this is to our families, to our livelihoods, to our communities, to our states, and to our country.
And Senator Fischer has some great points there. And at Growth Energy, you've actually created a website to reach some of these policymakers. Just by visiting, you can actually find out exactly who to get in contact with.
We have, and I encourage, first of all, I think we all need to thank Senator Fischer.
Absolutely.
She remains such a champion for us, and she's a lead sponsor of a bill in Congress that really started to drum up a lot of momentum behind this E15 movement. So our thanks to her, and I echo her call to action. If people go to e15now.com, you'll get more information about E15. You'll also figure out how exactly you can reach out to your elected officials and make sure that your voice is heard.
And Chip, you know, harvest has started. There's a lot of corn farmers probably listening to us on their combines at this hour on rural radio. You know, she made a point about how farmers work really hard, and, you know, it keeps them from being as vocal as maybe we hear from some other groups, say the environmentalists, for example. Do you think that that's true? And what would you say to farmers out there to maybe motivate them to go to that website?
Well, they will. Our farmers do a great job of doing calls to action when we need them. It seems like we're getting them to call D.C. all the time now for a bunch of different things, but they realize that the RFS is the most important topic that we have right now. Our goal is to protect the RFS at all means possible. So when we ask our farmers and growers across the country to talk to their political representatives and make those calls to D.C., they do it, and we really appreciate that.
All right. I love where this is going, and you're right. We've seen it from our RFD-TV viewers time and time again. Okay, we are going to go back to the phones, and first we're going to go to Kim from Kansas. Kim, thanks for joining the conversation. Go right ahead.
Good evening. Hello, Chris, Chip, and Emily. It's good to see you on the TV. I really appreciate it. I take a lot of pride in lobbying the RFS and providing all these opportunities for farmers. But Chip or Emily, would you please explain just how the RFS provides access to these pumps and how hard it is for a retailer to get ethanol into their pumps because they get shut out? That's what the RFS is all about.
So Emily can probably answer that question, but that's Ken from Kansas, and Ken's a very active person with Kansas corn. So thanks for calling in, Ken.
You recognize the voice.
I recognize that voice.
Good.
Well, Ken, thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. The fuel marketplace is not a fair playground right now. We need the renewable fuel standard to give us the chance to compete so that our fuel is blended and the consumer has access to purchase that higher blend of fuel, E15. Chip talked earlier about an initiative called Prime the Pump. This is a wonderful program. It's a public-private partnership. So there was a government grant that said to the retailers, you guys need some infrastructure to be able to sell higher blends of ethanol. We're going to give you some grants to support that process. And the private community investment matched that grant. So we've got more than $90 million in commitments. And you're looking at a map right now that working with these retailers, these independent retailers in 30 states across the country that now offer E15. I'm very proud as a Minnesotan that Minnesota leads the pack with the most retailers offering E15 to consumers. But it's been an effort. It's been an effort, and that speaks to just how much we need the ability to compete. And I will say, what pleases me more than anything is when consumers have the chance to purchase this fuel, they do again and again. We've just got to give them the access, and they will demand it.
You know, I'm a Californian. Gas prices are ridiculously high in California, but you know what Californians love? Green energy. And so it just doesn't make any sense to me why my state is not included in that list of 30.
California is one of the states that actually prohibits the sale of E15. Yep. It's something we're working on, and hopefully we can overturn that quickly. But it speaks to some of the misinformation and misperceptions about the fuel. So important for someone who cares about the environment. There's no better solution for renewable energy source than biofuel and American ethanol.
So, and Ken also brought up how we're getting the pumps out there so the consumer can buy ethanol-related products. National Corn Growers has a project going on where we're helping pump manufacturers make pumps that will pump higher blends of ethanol. So we're putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to that, getting these pumps out there and available to the retailers like Prime the Pump, but all retailers across the country will have access to pumps that pump the fuel that we produce.
All right, and that's probably inspiring for a lot of the retailers who are watching right now. You know, we're reaching all across the country right now, and we thank you for joining us in this town hall. We're going to go to Roger now from California. Thanks for joining us, Roger. Go right ahead.
My question is, what's being done to advertise or to get the message out to all the non-agricultural people that you would really need their support to help push this thing through? Because unless you're watching RFD, you're really not going to hear about it.
Roger, thank you for that question. That's something that we've been working on at Growth Energy for the past couple of years. It's changing the conversation. And many industries, the ethanol industry is like other industries, we're very good at talking to ourselves. And so when we're talking to the rural communities, we talk about what ethanol does for the rural economy. But when I talk to millennials in Portland, or a soccer mom in Atlanta, or a grandmother in New Mexico, the conversation is different. It's about, what do you care about? What are you most concerned about? Is it the environment? All right, I've got a solution for you. It's E15. Is it cost savings at the pump? I've got a solution for you. It's E15. Is it cleaner air for your children to breathe? I've got a solution for you. E15. So social media, digital communications is certainly very helpful. We've got a website, getbiofuel.com, that tries to talk to that average American American consumer who may not know very much about ethanol, doesn't need to know that much, but should know that there are ways that you can get a fuel that's cleaner and greener and better for the pocketbook.
So in another program, another outreach we were doing for consumers was the Nascar program. We have the #3 American ethanol race car owned by the Richard Childress, and the outreach and the millions and millions of people that watch NASCAR every week understand that every car on that track is running on E15, and it's been a great program for us.
You know, what about for a boat? I think that's another misconception. I can't put it in my boat, but that's not exactly true.
So you can. I live on the East Coast. I live on a river. I've got a boat that I run E10 in my boat all the time. It's had nothing in it but E10. I do use a fuel stabilizer, so when the boat doesn't get used for a few days, it doesn't separate, but my boat's running great. I'll go home this weekend and get on it.
Ah, lucky you. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones. That actually leaves a line open for you, 877-731-6733. Dwayne from Kansas, you are next. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Hi. My question is, why can't I find, out here it's E85. And we have a big co-op here that just merged, and they have several, I think about 6 filling stations, and I can't find E85 at any of them. And I was in Colorado, here, just come back, and I filled up the E85 out there with my little car, and I got better gas mileage with E85 than I did with what do you call it? I guess it's just regular gasoline.
Well, Dwayne, first of all, I'm glad that you have a flex fuel vehicle and you're looking for E85. It's unfortunate that the automakers have stopped making flex fuel vehicles. One of the reasons, I think, is because it was hard for consumers to find the fuel E85. And that's why we have spent so much time and energy and resources working with retailers to build out their capabilities to be able to offer fuel with higher blends like an E15 or an E85. So there are, I think, over 4,000 retailers selling E85 right now. If you go to getbiofuel.com and you type in your zip code, hopefully you can find a retailer near you. But I appreciate your frustration, and that's a frustration that a lot of people share with me. They wish that they could access more E85 because it's a great fuel for flex fuel vehicles.
And Dwayne, you're actually right. I mean, I live on the East Coast. I have a vehicle that can use E85, and I can't find it myself. I'd have to drive 50 or 60 miles to fill up on E85. But again, the retailer has to be profitable for them, so they got to have the market for E85. And we're taking steps. E15 gets us to the next level. Believe me, E85's coming. We'll get the automakers back, hopefully making these engines. Give us time, we'll get there.
Thank you so much for that call. Really appreciate hearing from you, Dwayne. That leaves a line open for you, 877-731-6733. We'll go back to the phones in a moment, but E15 can be sold year-round in Chicago and Illinois, but not Des Moines. Why is that the case?
It can't be sold year-round in Des Moines or in Omaha or in the Twin Cities. Again, it goes back to an outdated regulation that's nearly 30 years old that was made when E15 didn't exist. All we want are for the rules to reflect the marketplace that we have today. And I will add, E15 is the only fuel that is treated differently from EPA. It's the only fuel that has a restriction on when it can be sold and marketed to a consumer throughout the year and when it can't. So this is bureaucratic red tape. The president has said this is something that he wants to address and eliminate. And so we need to make sure that the president follows through on those commitments that he's been making to us.
Absolutely. We were talking about some of these misconceptions. What about for small engines? What do you say to the person who questions whether or not it's okay for their small engine?
Well, the standard fuel in this country is made with 10% ethanol. It's an E10 blend. Most people don't know that. All small engines, whether it's your weed whacker or it's your lawnmower or your boat engine, are warranted for standard gasoline with E10. And so there is a misperception that ethanol wouldn't be good for the engine, but it's fine for the engine. It's warranted, and so it's important for people to know that. I will say E15 is not approved for small engines. So when you go to the gas station, it's very clearly labeled. If you've got your boat engine, put E10 in it. If you've got a car made in 2001 and newer, put that E15 in it if you've got the opportunity.
Okay, we were just talking about availability. How can I find out where it is available? Maybe see it on a map.
We've got a website, getbiofuel.com, and if you go there, you can type in your zip code and you can find the fuel station near you. And increasingly, part of our marketing and our promotion also is working with some of these app providers so that you can recognize these gas stations nearby.
Okay, now we recently had that exclusive interview with President Donald Trump, and we told him that we were going to be doing this rural town hall. What would you say to the president right now about the importance of E15 if you knew that you had his ear, starting with you, Emily?
Well, I would thank the president for his support, and I would say, Mr. President, let's get this done. You give us year-round sales of E15, and we together will make rural America great again.
How about you, Chip?
I would say, President Trump, you've got the opportunity to improve the farm economy, not for just corn farmers like me, but all of the ag economy. American-made E15, made by America's farmers, is the great way to get there. So let's go ahead and get this done.
Okay, and hopefully we will get that announcement. It could be coming any day now. We keep hearing that, and so it's kind of hard at this point to believe that one day it will be coming. But I mean, to hear him vocally talking about it in that exclusive interview, it goes to show you are making headway. You are making headway with the president. How does that feel?
It feels good, but we're not done yet.
Right.
We're not there. And so, one thing that we have learned through this process is how much the American farmer does mean to the president.
Yes.
And so it's your voice that matters, that he really listens to, that he needs to hear from. So because we're not done yet, we've got to keep this echo chamber and this chorus of, we need this now, and this is what it's going to do to boost our rural economy.
Absolutely.
And we are making headway, but our farmers are seeing it as a slow progress,
Yep.
and they really want something to happen. Now's the time to get it done. There's no time like the present.
And again, this is all about action. Action is what we need from you. What would you say to the farmers out there? They're struggling, and now we're getting into harvest time. It's one of those times of year where we should be celebrating and joyous that finally you get that bounty after working so hard during the growing season. What would you say to them to offer them a little bit of inspiration about the progress that you have made so far and the potential of E15 year-round sales actually becoming a reality and potentially sooner than later?
So for our growers, they just need to know that National Corn Growers and Growth Energy is working hard every day to make sure that we promote our product in the best way that we can. We are making progress. We are making headway. Be patient. Be a little bit more patient. Better times are coming.
And hopefully the president will get to see this town hall. He knew that we were doing it. We let him know within that interview that this would be happening. We want to do more town halls just like this to make the rural American voice heard. And we are always on the side of the American farmer here at RFD-TV. Where can our viewers get more information?
I would say go to e15now.com. And that's how you can learn more about what this fuel is going to do for rural America and all American consumers, and how you can be involved in the process to make sure that we get the policy change we need so you can access the fuel you want whenever you want.
Absolutely. All right, we are getting to the end of our show. I want to thank you first and foremost for all of your wonderful calls. We had some excellent calls tonight. And again, we're going to be doing more town halls like this. But do either of you, did we miss anything? I feel like we covered all the bases. But if you have any final thoughts for us, go ahead and share those.
Well, you asked about the positive news and the inspiration. And I would say ethanol is an American success story. It really is, and it's a story that we need to tell over and over again. And maybe we got a caller question about this. We need to tell it in a different way so that it resonates not just in Des Moines and Omaha and the Twin Cities, but it's resonating on the coasts and in the north and in the south. So it's something that's a win for everyone. It's a win for the rural economy. It's a win for the American consumer. It's a win for our patriotism and our energy independence as well. So we've got a great future ahead of us.
Final thoughts?
So in 2005, when we got the first renewable fuel standard, corn farmers were very excited about. We had just accomplished something that we didn't think we could ever get done. We've worked very hard to protect the RFS. We've worked very hard to build an industry along with Growth Energy and our retailers, and we're not going to quit.
Good.
We realize that this is the answer to some of our problems.
All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. It was a wonderful show. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Good night from rural America's most important network.